Welcome in, everyone. Our Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here, here to break down a wonderful, wonderful weekend of DC soccer. Other soccer was good for me. Some other soccer was good for me. I don't think soccer in the local DC area was not good. John, how you doing, my friend? How was your weekend? I hope it was better, other than the games we had to witness.
I've been better, I think, but getting through the day, getting through the weekend. Yeah. What did I do? I don't remember anything about the weekend. I just know these two games zapped the joy out of the soccer component, and I've been dreading ever since, thinking that we had to do a podcast about it. So, in fact, I put a call out for questions earlier today and heard nothing until 7 p.m. And I was like, really, guys? Come on, something. Be mad. Just yell or something. And then finally we got some. So
some of the regulars in the podcast jumped in. I think two of the regulars have jumped in, but
they did.
No, things aren't great. Vibes, I think, have sort of come down a little bit amongst DC United people. Spirit also, I think, also contributing to some of the malaise maybe about. We'll get into that obviously second half of the show. First,
album of the day. I haven't done it in a while.
Yes,
this is Faye Webster. Just got it in the mail today. Check it out. It's good stuff. I'm obsessed with it. If you like to feel sad sometimes, great record. All of her records are great for that. So check it out.
Yes. By the way, John didn't ask about my weekend. That's fine.
Oh,
That's
crap.
fine.
Sorry, Ted. How was you said you had a good soccer weekend for other teams other than that one. Did you also referee this weekend?
No, I did not referee. Actually, been busy trying to move. All of this spec gear is coming down. Moving to another location, back to Richmond. But I went to the Kickers. They won 3-0 in a crucial playoff game where they needed to win to get into the 9th playoff spot or the 8th playoff spot, whatever spot League One has as far as their playoffs go. But they needed that win, and they got that win. So they are now in the playoffs. It's amazing watching a team go out in a crucial match that they need to win and do the job. Unlike the team we're about to talk about, which is DC United. DC United losing 4-0 to the Philadelphia Union. All the worst aspects of this year just kind of coming to fruition. I am so tired. I am so sick of talking about DC United versus the Philadelphia Union in the regular season, and just watching us get beat up and down. We've had like some moments where maybe things have looked good, but I feel like we always have these games where it's just like we just look so bad against Philadelphia.
I tweeted sarcastically, you can tell there's progress this season because previously we would have lost this game 6-0. So we're doing a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, let's break into it. So I missed about the first few minutes of the game. Before the goals, I got in there and things were like, okay. I was like, all right, they're getting chances. They're moving the ball well. They're able to get into attacking spaces. I think they're playing this pretty well. Obviously, Troy Lesesne rolling out sort of like a 5-4-1 type formation. Maybe he switches to like a 3-5-2 in attack. Pirani, of course, getting the start over Ted Kudu-Pietro. You had, of course, Pedro Santos, the only player that can play left back. A lot of people like throwing out like other lineups, and I'm just like, if you want to make everybody else worse on the field to maybe cover a situation that I still contend is not really his fault.
No.
Nope.
No one made him the de facto starting left back at 36 years old in this team. That's not really what was planned for him at any point. And yet here he is having to do that. So I somewhat feel for him in a way because, it's kind of set up to fail. But as you said, what else are you going to do right now? Everyone's in a bind. David Schnegg needs to have a magic healer rub rosemary on his calf or something.
I find it very interesting. I feel like we haven't gotten any updates. I don't know if anybody's been asking in the press conference. I think Troy has been very open about certain injuries. He's been very open about where people are. And I feel like with Schnegg, he's just been like, oh, he's out for a while.
Except for the previous left back also was not very clear about what was going on with that one. So maybe it's a left back thing.
That was a different situation. So at least he's been clear that this has been an injury. But I think this is another game, I think, that just kind of like illustrates that this roster is just not good enough. They're going to have moments. They're going to have games where they're going to look good. I will not be at all surprised. I know it's Columbus coming to town. I will not be at all surprised that this team suddenly just plays above themselves. Columbus comes in maybe a little bit. Maybe they rotate. They've got America in the Campeones final. Again, it's a glorified like charity shield type match at this point. So not like a major trophy, even though, Extra Time Radio really wants you to make you think this is a major trophy. But it's not, it's still a trophy, and I still feel like Columbus is going to take it seriously. And I really do believe that there's a chance this team just completely plays above themselves like they've done other times in the season. And who knows, maybe they pop up with a point, would be maybe the highest I would hope for against Columbus. But this is kind of what we've seen from this team. This team puts together good results, but that extra level that you need just to even be considered a playoff team, it's not there right now. And there's going to have to be a lot of changes, a change of formation. I mean, someone would argue, well, we got a lot of new guys in there. We got Boris now played, Matty Patola played. You, of course, had Christian Benteke, who's going to be back here next year, Gabriel Pirani, who they've signed. A lot of those guys are still there. I will say this is a game. If I'm Ali Mackay, I do maybe look at this game and I'm thinking, the leash is not like completely off. And I think we got a question about that, but I'm at least thinking like, maybe I'm having some thoughts about, we had this great run and then the team just looked like they fell flat today. It wasn't an issue of tactics. To me, this was an issue of performance.
Well, with the changes at halftime, some of it was about tactics, I think. I mean, tactics in some way, but personnel probably more than anything else.
Well, you're down 2-0 at that point, so you got to throw more forward, I think is what
Sure, but I think that the fact that they were down 2-0 is an acknowledgement of what was going on was not working.
Well,
you don't think so?
I feel like the two goals. So you look at the two goals, both of them came, obviously off just bad defensive breakdowns. I think Garrison Tubbs especially. Whatever positives I had thinking about him, this guy has a long way to go.
Yep.
He is completely just on the first goal, particularly just lets I forget the goal scorer here, just kind of drift. Maybe he thinks he's offside at that point, but there's no attempt to mark.
It's Ure. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Ure. Lots of vowels going on.
Yeah, it just drifts into that spot. Basically, Tubbs is marking nobody at that point. And I think he gets paid for it with that first goal. And then the second goal, I think it's a similar case where he misses his mark. I mean, again, it's just poor defensive marking guy. Two, like, just easy goals right in front. No, like, you just got broke down so poorly and so badly. I don't think overall that the tactic essentially was wrong. I just think it was just poor individual defensive moments in this game where they did not look up to actually like being competitive. I think also McVay had a rough night too.
Mm-hmm.
He's dealing with a lot. This team really did miss Lucas Bartlett.
Wild to say from the start of the year.
Yeah. He is shown to have an ability to be a much better marking sort of forward. And so you're dealing with Garrison Tubbs. I think you're seeing quite similarly once Akamboni's healthy, Akamboni moves up the depth chart ahead of Tubbs at this point. So yeah, it was just overall, I think just poor individual performances. I really don't think in the first half the tactic was necessarily wrong. I think the execution by the players was wrong. I don't think you'll see Troy admit that or say that. I think you will hear him say, oh, sorry, I screwed it up, because he wants to protect his players. But
he, in the post game, was very much, I don't want to say making excuses, but he was talking about how we're one of two teams that haven't made the playoffs in 5 years. And Philadelphia are one of two teams who have made the playoffs every single year. So we are looking at a difference in talent and we're trying to get there, but we're not there yet. So that was the first sort of like pointing at the, not necessarily scoreboard, but like, hey guys, look at the situation that we're in, the circumstance, the context. I don't blame him. After that game, I don't know what else you're going to say other than if you're going to run your players under the bus, that's stupid to do in September at the end of the season. There's no value in that. So I would say pointing to the fact that we have a long way to go.
Well,
and
I think it's, and he made, go ahead. Sorry.
He made a big point of the fact that it was, he made a big point of the fact that it was, I was just going to bet, that it was that they're it's a great that they're still within shot of the playoffs. Like there was a bit of a, like, hey, we're still in this, and that's great that we are. It's an accomplishment that we're even in the playoff picture based on how far we have to go. So that's okay. I mean, again, when you lose like that, that's about what you can say.
Yeah. I mean, it's a game where everybody, let's talk about, I think there are two players that are maybe getting the most ear from players. Matty Patola, who played as the third center back, and Boris Enow, the new player. I think some people are starting to throw around the bust word. I think it's too early a little bit on Boris Enow.
I said that after the first game I saw him play in, by the way. If you look back at the tapes, I was like, well, he's under contract for 4 years. I'm a bit concerned.
Let's give it some time. I think there's still some talent there. I keep wondering what the plan is. Is the plan to play him as sort of the own center back? Is there a plan to sort of pair him up with a guy like Matty Patola? Maybe they can complement each other a little bit. I don't know, but it has been a concerning first few weeks of performances. I'm willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. You arrive mid-season when I don't know what Israel plays as far as their season goes, whether they're mid-season or whether they're
playing right now too is an open question.
Yeah, true. But so I'm willing to give him a little bit of the doubt. Jumping in mid-season is hard, trying to adjust to new country, new players. Same with Matty a little bit too. And I feel like I've still seen stuff with Matty when he plays well, you see some good things out of him. Tonight was not a good night for him. Again, he's playing in that center back role. That's a role that I think, I was championing at the beginning of the year. I think I've learned it just doesn't. Sometimes you get roles that you see in other leagues and you're like, hey, he can do that. That looks really good. And then you see him come to another league and it's like, never mind. He can't do that. He can't do that in this league, or he doesn't have enough of the, maybe it's a case of not having a center back that can actually be like a stopper. So maybe it's an issue of who's around him as well. So.
Maybe. I think too, if you look back at the records, Tom Bogert basically says everybody is a good signing. If you go back, when you look at Jayaz, great signing. When you look at Boris Enow, great signing for DC United. Every signing that they come in from another league is like very promising, lots of competition, talented player. So DC United is never alone in the guys that they're picking, but projecting from league to league is challenging. That's why it's such a hard job. And you said it. We're going to give he gets some time here. He gets the rest of the season. He gets an off season. He gets a preseason. But it's something. We have a question from one of the regulars that speaks to this. Like, you've got to decide what you're doing in the middle of midfield when one of these players is committed and contracted for another 3 seasons. So he's going to be here. You got to decide what you're going to build around him. What player complements him. It's a tricky. It's hard. I don't envy Mackay's job, even though he's going to have a lot more room to work with next year. That just means more areas on which to trip and make mistakes because you have a lot more freedom to choose.
Yeah, let's not forget too. I mean, we're talking a lot about Boris Enow. We're talking about Matty Patola. I don't want to go without saying I thought this was like a vintage, in a bad way, a vintage Pirani performance.
This was a vindication, retroactive vindication for the show.
I forget. I think I read Backfield, and they were like, they're so reliant. They're too reliant on Benteke, and I'm like, I feel like in this game they underused Benteke because you had players that were not finding the pass to him. He had one sort of like good chance where he could have maybe scored a goal, and Blake made sort of a fantastic save. I feel like they were not doing enough to actually try to find him.
The only player that was passing to him was Alex Bono.
Yeah.
And he passed him every time. And I think the struggle was, if you look at any dead ball situation, they double teamed Benteke the entire time. They put their largest center back and one other player every time on Benteke, which is smart. And every team should do that. But you could see any free kick opportunity or cross opportunity, they never went to Benteke. It always went to the trail guy. It always went to the other side of the 16 of the 18. So to your point, they did not maximize the one weapon they had. They did not have enough numbers in the box on anything, on counterattacks or on just primary attacking. That was another thing that Troy brought up after the fact. He's like, that's the one thing that I'm going to watch the game, but that's the one thing I think we need to do better on for sure is that. So
Yeah. I mean, it also slowed it down too. They would get the ball into space, they would slow it down, try to sort of pass it around, which sometimes can work. It just, Philly was onto it every time and just completely beat this team down the dribble. Everybody on that field for DC United like had a subpar game. Even Click had, I think, probably I would say his worst performance for DC United. Was not effective really on the press. They were bypassing the midfield way too easily. And then, again, he has the pass, I believe, on the third or fourth goal. It was the fourth goal, I think, where he just like lays sort of a medicine ball backwards and literally Philadelphia pounces on it. So like,
I think it was the last. I think it was fourth goal. You talking about the click square ball? Yeah, that was awful.
Quick square ball. I mean, it was just, and that's uncharacteristic of him. He's normally is a better player. So, this is like, but this is, I think, this is the situation that DC's in right now. In the fact that they are in the place they're in, they have to be like perfect. And this is why, like I said, this game, if they win it, if they lose it, if they lose or draw, not making the playoffs. I'm thinking firmly now this team is toast. Yep. I do not see this team making the playoffs. I do not see they're going to have other days where they're going to play well. They're going to like still put together some results. Maybe they creep back into that spot, but this just shows like it seems like they get into a situation with a team that knows they need to win. They just don't have the talent to actually meet the challenge. So, yeah,
I think Click is also not used to being in lost cause situations. Like I think a 4-0 loss on the road, it's just like demoralizing and sort of it erodes your sharpness. It shouldn't when you're a professional and you've been in the game a long time, but I don't think that this is necessarily what he signed up for, or any of the sort of Benteke threw his tape off at the end of the game. Like they were just mad. Everyone was like very frustrated for having to be a part of this in a game that they all knew they had to win. The pressure was on them. They felt it. Aaron Herrera in the midweek was talking about what he thought he needed to do. And he made it clear, like the players knew, they all knew what the deal was. And they just completely failed in all aspects. And this was a game that, I don't know, it should have, and if not winnable, it certainly should have been more competitive. And they certainly should have been able to, even after the first two goals, there was a small spurt where DC had like a little bit of a momentum, but it died immediately. They just could not figure out a way to possess the ball. They couldn't figure out a way to find Benteke, their only option, their only weapon. Just really disappointing overall, and really sort of takes the wind out of your sails from the optimism perspective. If there are people that are like really sure that this team is going to make the playoffs, like you should make bets with them about other things because they may not be very good at predicting the future. I just don't see it.
I do think, to give this team credit, I think they will bounce back. I think there will be a moment, and I think I could. I would say if you want to make like a low risk bet, maybe bet DC to beat Columbus, because that's a game I could see this team just kind of pulling this out. They've done this sort of all year. They get players back healthy. I don't know what Click's status is. Maybe that'll be a question for the midweek. But they're gonna go. They're gonna get Bartlett back. They're gonna have hopefully Akamboni looks like he's on his way back. And I think they're gonna, they kind of put forth these stinker performances, and then they kind of are like, all right, let's wash that taste out of our mouth, and then they go and they play, above themselves. And I think that's really this team, in order to make the playoffs, has to play above themselves, like above what they are right now. They did that for, I would say, for the past, like since the Leagues Cup break, they've played sort of above themselves, maybe with the exception of the Dallas game. But, if every one of those stinkers where you play below yourself, then that's when, you give up results, you give up games. They're not a team that's talented enough to do those types of things right now. And that's why they lost this game. That's why they lost the game against Dallas. And that's ultimately what I think will sort of cost this team to the playoffs. It stinks. It really stinks. I know there are a lot of people out there that are very much frustrated about what this team is going to do. It stinks. It stinks all over. This team should be better. This team should not be in a case where they are missing the playoffs as much as they are. I'm hopeful that there is sort of a path forward, that there is a plan. But again, I think this is a reminder that there's no guarantees. And seeing the players we saw out there, not have the greatest performances, particularly guys that have just come into this team or guys that we know will be back next year, is maybe a little bit of a warning sign. For what could happen next year. All right, we got some questions. We want
Yeah, let's do the questions. So this could be a short one. Go ahead.
Rob Rolston said, I do have a question. While I don't think the skill of our players is the best, I also don't think it's as bad as the results have been this season. Outside of improving the scribe, what steps would you like to see to improve for improved defense next year?
Consistent lineup in the back line would be the thing.
I think you need a high level center back, TAM level, maybe potentially DP level. I think you start looking. I think Bono's been, I think, solid. Like, he's a solid goalkeeper. I don't know if Bono's a goalkeeper that you can win a championship with, or make a deep run in the playoffs. Maybe you can. Maybe he would prove me wrong. I think you got to look for some competition there, some real competition, not Tyler Miller on a $400,000 contract. So that's one area I would look for. You look at this team, Andre Blake made a couple fantastic saves. He doesn't make maybe a lesser goalkeeper. Maybe DC picks up an early goal. Maybe maybe it's a 4-2 game or a 4-3 game, and DC has some momentum or an opportunity. Blake was fantastic in this game, and really there weren't too many chances DC had, but he had a couple really just excellent save, both one on Click and one on Benteke. If those go in the back of the net, maybe you're looking at sort of a different game. So I think this team needs elite level goalkeeping. If you want to start talking about compete, that's what all the teams that are above them have. They have a goalkeeper you can trust to win you games. Bono does that on occasion. Maybe there's a chance he grows, he levels up. And I think also just getting a high level center back. Maybe you'll use that DP slot on a center back. So
I think you need a high level center back, and you need a real left back, a real backup left back. Yeah. Connor Antley will be fine. He's coming back from an ACL. I think he's more of a utility player. Yeah. I think I want someone that you can count on to come in that's not 36.
Maybe a Graham Jones.
I would actually not prefer him to be that position. I would actually prefer someone that has a little bit more seniority. I think with Matai and Tubbs, I think we have about all the youth that we can handle. I think on the back line, I would want someone that's got a little bit more less tread on the tires, I guess, a little bit more experience to step in. I basically just never want to have. I don't want an obvious target.
Yeah,
on this team. Like, when you see the lineup, you don't want to be like, well, I know when they show the traffic on the graphic at halftime where all the traffic is on the field, it should never say 85%. That's not what we want. We want to avoid that situation going forward.
I would maybe I think I feel like when you bring in a young player, yes, you might have some issues, but I feel like there's more of a chance you bring in a young player, you give them an opportunity to step up, and then suddenly, if you find yourself in a Kevin Paredes situation where he immediately steps in, that's a little more a sure thing than finding some journeyman down in the USL. As much as I thought Connor Antley was really good, and I think he really, in my opinion, maybe was like an underrated story. I wonder if this season would be different if he had been healthy. I think they still go out and get David Schnegg, but I just think purely from a depth perspective, they would have had fewer issues trying to figure out how to manage that wing back spot. I think it would have had less time for Pedro Santos. Maybe you would have had a different story.
Maybe.
Richard Rolson says, would you bring Knaus or Click back if you could only bring back one? Oof.
Let's make this harder on ourselves. We'll say for an identical salary.
Identical salary, or we'll say both on a TAM deal. Which oh man, it's tough.
It's tough because they don't feel they're both in the midfield, but they both are different players.
Yeah,
I'd say Click still.
Yeah, I would say getting Click on a TAM deal, I still think makes it worth it because you can you have the space, you can go get a DP number 10. Yep. Maybe he slides into a different role. Maybe he, causes some competition. Maybe he can be, later in his career, a really big spark off the bench. So, Richard, we have not heard any rumors about DC's next pro.
Yeah, we're pretty far from the rumor mill these days. So no, unfortunately, I think the question was is DC United's MLS next pro team closer than we think, or have we heard anything? We've not. I don't know. Baltimore someday is the answer.
Yeah, they're still pushing Baltimore. We think
I have friends that just moved. Trey and Karen moved right next to where the new stadium would be in Baltimore. I was like, guys are going to be the first season ticket holders, obviously, for MLS Next Pro, the most important league that can be.
Mark Goodling, how much of a lease will Troy have next season? Interesting question.
How much of a leash will he have next year? I think if he has a season like this, he'll see out his contract. If he has a season worse than this, then he will not.
I think I'm going to say I think if it's like this, I think I agree. If it's like
around the playoff spot, not wooden spoon contending. Although we're not that far.
I will say it's going to depend on it's going to depend on what DP slots this team is going to use, what talent they're going to bring in for the winter. I think you're going to get a lot of good, depth players in the winter. I think that's going to be probably their primary goals. They want to sort of bolster the depth of this team. I'm not sure. Maybe they hold one of those DP slots open for the summer. That's where you can maybe bring that talent in. I think if this team is hovering around there, and then I think if they sink lower, if they don't improve significantly after that next summer window, I could see them saying, we're going to make a move now. We're done. Bye. We're going to grab somebody else. I think it's going to depend on also the overall mood of the locker room, how things are going to. I think it's definitely going to be put up or shut up time as far as like the excuse of the disastrous cap is no more.
They're gone.
Yep. And you've got to go and you've got to perform. Did we get any? I didn't see. Did we get any Discord questions?
I'll look, but I don't believe we did. No, we did not.
Nope, no Discord questions. So the malaise everywhere.
Yeah, we all feel it, except for not everybody has to do a podcast, but we do.
Columbus next week predictions. Go. What do you think?
You said potentially win, just as like a reverse whammy situation. Is it home or at Columbus?
It's home.
I think 2-1 loss to Columbus for putting a spike through the heart of the playoff chances fully.
I'm going to say 2-2 draw. I'm going to say
which then it cruelly keeps it alive in a way.
I think it makes it hard. I think that has to be, that's almost a must win. Must win sure. Maybe puts me back in the playoff, that they might make the playoffs, but I don't see it. All right, let's move on. Spirit.
We'll start with the good news. Tara McKeown got a 3-year extension, which is crazy. If you were to put us back in the time machine of the beginning of last season, where we were calling Mark Parsons a big dummy head for moving her to center back, and here she is. She's played every single minute this season. She started every game. She's played almost every minute since she's been switched over. She gets a contract, and to me, feels like she is one of the nailed-on center backs. It seems like Esme is going to fight with Anna Patel to make that other center back spot. So I don't think anybody of us would have expected that at the start. So congrats to her on that. And the other thing, we talked about this when the league started. We said, I think there's Spirit players that should be loaned out to this new Super League. And now we've done that. The Spirit have signed or loaned Waniah Hudson, a player who has not played, I believe, but had made the bench last game, which is good. I still think Chloe Ricketts needs to be on loan. I don't know what the holdup is there. She has been a ghost since the new leadership has taken over. So I think one more to come, hopefully. But yeah, that's all the good news. She's going to go to Dallas Trinity FC for the rest of the season. So luckily, hopefully she gets some time and comes back next season and see if she can compete for minutes with the big club.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the sad stuff.
The sad stuff, which is the game against the KC Current. I mean, it was just I think this is another performance where, similar to DC, just no one played above himself. No one played well. They lost like a lot of key moments in this game. It was just kind of a performance where I just don't think they were up for it. This was a game. This was a game I think you needed to win if you wanted to talk about the Shield. At the very least, you wanted to get a point out of it, to just kind of hold fast on the second place spot. We've talked about this team. I think this is the first game where I felt like, man, Croy Bethune, I think, could really make a difference at this game, because to Casey's credit, they really locked things down defensively. And the Spirit had a few looks, but they had maybe about half the looks that they've gotten in normal games. And when you have a team, and then when your team's able to get a pretty fortuitous own goal, and then you have a couple bad breakdowns. That can be the difference in a game.
You love when you get outshot on shots on goal, and all the shots on goal for Kansas City went in the net. You do love that. That's a really lovely stat. I think, if you look at the lineup, there were no surprises. Really, Ashley Hatch keeps her spot up at the 9. It's funny how much Ule Saar's absence is affecting sort of the depth component. Everybody moves up a spot, and it hollows out the bench a little bit. If you looked at the bench last night, as far as proven attackers go, there were none. I guess she wasn't available. She was available. Brittany Radcliffe was available, did not feature. There was not really any attacking threat to come off the bench as it was situated last night. So I think that's something to watch. It's a trickle. It's all trickles down. I think Croy's injury changes what Lacey Santos has fought to do. Saar's injury means Hatch is now dependent on to be the primary scorer, and but the fact is now the best distributor was injured, and then Trinity Rodman had a game. Well, we did. Trinity Rodman being injured is a big deal. It was a back spasm. She was wheelchaired off, so that scared everybody. But after the fact, we're told it's just a very bad back spasm. She has battled back injuries for like a year and a half. Has been jostled around a lot. She does a lot of physical therapy and stuff to keep it going during the week. But back spasm is a much better outcome than any sort of situation that would have required a back surgery or flip disc or any of that stuff. Then we would have been in real trouble. This team without Trinity is gonna lose in the playoffs in game 1. So like I think you said ice her down. Just put her in bubble wrap until the games matter again. I think you're right.
Yeah, if you feel like she's hurt, so I trust the Spirit staff. I think you are going to have to monitor her closely, and I think she's not going to get 78-minute run out. She might sit on the bench next week. She might come off the bench and try to make a difference. I think a couple other performances. I think Casey Kruger had like a poor performance out at left back. I think she got beat on the first goal. Just again, other players not performing well, and I will say too. A lot of people look at Oleanne Saar and they look a lot at what, the fact that she, gets an opportunity, maybe doesn't make the most of it as far as the chances. Ashley Hatch is a pure number 9. She gets the ball in good spots and she finds a way to score a goal. I think she's very good at that. I think some of her runs are not as dynamic as Saar, and therefore it kind of makes the attack. When you have a team like the Current, who had moved themselves into a very much a defensive shell, you don't have any sort of creative runs that can really sort of, hex defenders or pull defenders out that leave space for other players. I still think back to the Mateer goal. The brilliant run was there, but what caught my eye about Saar was Saar sort of makes a run and darts off to the right side, probably to get in a spot, but it pulls another defender with her, leaving literally an open lane for Mateer to line up a shot. Those types of movements, I don't feel like I really see that from Hatch. She's very static. She's going to sort of make that sort of run towards goal to put herself in a spot to score goals. Again, she's the number 9. She's a goal scorer. But I look at that and I think that's the reason, I think a lot of the coaches this year, the 2 coaches they've had, have said, no, we're gonna play Saar out there because she, I think, helps. Yes, she has some moments where you're like, hey, sorry, maybe you should bury that. And if she was scoring goals at the rate of Chawinga, maybe she would be like an MVP of this league. But I think she provides a lot of those sort of off the ball abilities that open up sort of space for other players to make moves.
To your point, Hatch had 11 touches, and that's why she was brought off at halftime, I assume.
Yeah,
she was not function. Honestly, the home Kansas City game was a bit of fool's gold because those 2 goals scored in the first 20 minutes, and they weren't goals I don't remember them exactly, but I remember
the second one was a banger. The
first one felt lucky.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the goals the Spirit scored against Kansas City at the home game.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So the fact that we won that game, we got in a really commanding position very, very early on and controlled the game because of that. This was something different. And this is a very dangerous team. You talked about Chawinga. She is my most favorite person to watch play, least favorite to watch from a Spirit perspective. I think she is extremely, really talented. When you look at this team, like they, with Dabinia, and I think, Michelle Cooper gets, I think, did she score? She did not. She got an assist, but the opener by Nichelle Prince, like, this is just a team with a lot of weapons, and definitely should not have been written off after the Spirit happened to beat them. It's very, very close. It's Orlando and everybody else still, but I think that the fact that this team has made the playoffs, you need to figure out, get Sar healthy, figure out what Trinity's situation is, and then figure out what life after Croy Bethune needs to be. Like, figure out a way that you can create more chances up the middle and in transition. See what Lacey Santos can do if you have to move her around a little bit to maybe get her on the ball more. I don't know what it is. Maybe play wider, maybe get the fullbacks up further and have more crosses going on. I don't know. But right now they haven't looked great. I want to look at results here since Croy has been out. They've won games. Like, this was their first loss in quite some time. Beat the Houston Dash 3-0. That's not really a contest. The 2-1 Thorns game was pretty. I think that was the Rodman show, right? Rodman scored. I'm trying to remember who scored on those.
It was a comeback for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then 1-1 draw against San Diego, and then the 4-1 win against Kansas City home, which was just kind of a funky situation. So, I mean, we're good. The team is good. The team is still towards the top of the table. So it's not like we're going to have like a winless series for 8 games or something. You've got the run up you have is Angel City on Friday night, another Friday night game. Angel City scrapping here very, very much to get any point to keep their playoff hopes alive because they're in danger. And then you have the Pride, who are probably going to beat them pretty bad. They're probably going to beat them. You don't think so? Maybe a draw?
I think they can get a draw to that game. I don't know.
On the road?
I think Orlando's a tough squad, but they've hit a little bit. I feel like
a draw patch.
I feel like they've slowed down a little bit. They're not like as dominant. They're effective, but they're not as dominant. I don't know. I think that's going to be a closer match.
But the run-in is Angel City, Orlando, Louisville, Chicago, and North Carolina. Of those teams, Chicago is the only team that I think you can mark down without much of a threat, and the rest of the games are going to be competitive.
Yeah,
but we're already in the playoffs, so we're just talking about seeding and health.
Yeah, well, and seeding's important because you want to get I think right now you want to lock down that second seed if you can. Obviously, don't do it at the expense of losing Trinity Rodman, because I don't care how much how much home field advantage you have. Losing Trinity Rodman would be devastating for this team.
Yes,
and I think would put the nail in the coffin. I disagree a little bit. I think this team has still found a way to create chances. I think Croy Bethune does give you something a little different, just very effective at sort of finding that ball when players closing down. I think she would have made a difference in this game. You had a very compact Kansas City Current team, and that's almost where you need a player like Croy Bethune, who can sort of draw those players in, find that pass out wide, shovel it out wide. So I think we're seeing the limitations of maybe this, as talented as this team is, you pick up enough key injuries, it's going to kill, any type of team. I think getting Sar back is going to be big. If once she's back in the lineup, I think you'll see things start to hopefully settle down a little bit. I still think Lacey Santos is a very talented player. I think she's been able to create chances for this team. I think she's still learning a little bit about where players are, but I think she's getting better and better each time. So I'm not so worried. I'm not so worried about this team, moving forward, even after this result. I think we'll see this team bounce back against LA. I think maybe it's a good thing they had this happen to them. Maybe it's a good, wake up call about, you're not as good as you think you are. And I think they talked about it too in the post game. I think it was Gabby Carl talking about how like they really just were not up for like this game. It was like they weren't ready to meet the challenge. And so that can be a good thing to happen early right now. You'd rather this happen now than, during the playoffs. So
the stats kept for NWSL are so hit or miss. It drives me crazy. Some games, big chances are recorded. Some games they're not. Sometimes they just don't keep that stat. Yeah. Not great. Anyway, I was just looking. They had no big chances created in the last game and have never had that problem happen before. So just at least recorded. Anyway,
it was a combination of an off night. And, again, I think some fortune on the KC Current side, but that's what happens in one-off games. It's sometimes you're just unlucky. Sometimes you don't.
Did you see that
quite-
Lena Solano red card?
Yeah, that was just.
That was not good.
Yeah,
boot,
that was
boot
just
to the
kind of
neck.
that was just like, all right, let's get out of here. We're done here. No, I think they've got some other talent. I'm not necessarily worrying about Leah. Solano's I think a fine player, but
With a SAR injury, that's your forward off the bench really. So now you don't got her.
you still got Brittany Ratcliffe.
They didn't use her this time for some sort of reason. She's more of a winger. I think Lena plays more up the middle.
Yeah, that's true. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be. I think against LA is going to be a fun match. Hopefully, it's a return to form. Have they said what SAR is like? Is it week to week?
It's a back injury too, but they've not said how long the prognosis is, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. But they haven't come out with season ending. So
no. I think working it back into place. Yeah, I just think that it's good that this next game is Angel City and not Orlando. It gives them a little bit of a chance to I would not have wanted to have those two back to back, because then that would get in your head. If Orlando did lay the wood on them, then I think they're starting to be like, they'll lose a belief situation. But go beat Angel City.
Yeah,
you can do that. That's very much inside of your capabilities.
All right, folks. I think it's going to do it. It was a shorter show than what you guys might be used to.
I think you're probably going to be appreciative of that.
Yeah.
Right? Let us know on Twitter if you're actually happy this is less than 45 minutes.
Might encourage us. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, we love you guys so much. We appreciate the support you guys all show. Patreon.com/RFQRefugees. I will be back on doing stuff eventually. I've stopped saying when, but I'm going to continue to do stuff. It's just I've been very busy over these past couple of weeks, but hopefully things calm down a little bit. Anyway, we'll catch you guys on next week. Vamos.